My understanding is that Discord for Linux basically just has a guy, maybe two, possibly. So things tend to happen, things tend to get fixed when they get fixed. And for a long, long time now, Discord on Linux has been... It's been a little bit rough. It's totally functional for text chats and totally functional for voice chats, but there are these areas where it's just... I don't know what they were doing. Well, I know what they were doing. It's just they didn't really care about Linux. If you run a third-party client like a Desktop, for example, or you run Discord in your browser, these are problems you don't really think about and maybe just haven't really seen in a while. But Discord now, I would say, is almost at a point where, yes, it's still Discord, but it's actually competent at being Discord. If you run the regular Discord client, you have 100% seen this prompt. Discord loves to break on update. On Windows, it's always had, I think, or maybe it hasn't at some point, but pretty much most of its life has had this internal updater. When the updates come in, and they get installed, and you just go about your day. On Linux, we've had to deal with these, hey, it's your lucky day, there's a new update available prompt, and if the update is not available packaged on your distro, you would have to swap to a different version, maybe the browser version, Canary version, Flatpak, a third-party client temporarily, because until that new version was packaged on your distro, or you installed it manually, Discord just wouldn't open. It would constantly say, hey, there's a new update, go and install the update. This was a very annoying problem, and it would happen very frequently. I have Discord open pretty much all the time. I would deal with it at least twice, maybe 3 times a month. Finally, as of the May 4th patch notes, this is no longer a problem. I cannot believe they actually dealt with this. Are you a Linux user? If so, are you sick of that lovely modal we made to tell you that there's an update you need to manually install? Oh yes, lovely, lovely modal. If so, boy do I have good news for you. We've ported our Rust-based updater to Linux, allowing Linux to update itself just like on Windows. And additionally, they also support RPM and PKG tar ZST package formats for installation, but you're probably just installing it directly from your package manager, and it doesn't really matter what they officially support. But this right here, they have ported their internal automatic updater over to Linux. You've probably noticed over the past week, if you use Discord, you haven't seen an update prompt. Maybe you saw one around the 4th or the 5th, just for that final update to get you onto the automatic updater. But since then, it's gone. You open up the app, and it just works. It just works now. I shouldn't need to be happy about this. This should have been a basic feature, or at the very least, it wouldn't immediately break as soon as a new update was made. But it wasn't like that. It wasn't like that. And for so long, I've had to deal with this stupid application just breaking. And even though I'm on Arch Linux, sometimes the package just wasn't updated. Maybe it comes out in a couple of hours, maybe it's out the next day, and I need to use Discord, and then I need to go to another client, I need to go to the browser. I just never wanted to deal with it. And the thing is, it's not like internal updaters were just not a thing on Linux already, right? Steam has never had this problem. Steam has an internal updater. It checks for the update every time you open it. It installs the update. And you never think about it. How it took this long, I don't even know. I genuinely don't know why it has taken this long to get here. Now, the big question is whether or not it's ever going to break. Is it going to be a proper internal updater? Is it ever going to hit a point where the update doesn't just roll over? My assumption is there's still going to be, obviously, the package you install, but the only time you need to update the package is when the background dependencies change. But that's more in control of your individual distro. So there should just be less package updates being made, but I don't know. At least for now, it's been good. Hopefully, I never have to think about it again. Hopefully. So completely unplanned, I was working on another video. Discord published this. So they made their own video talking about changes they've been making on the Linux version. Did they hire a second Linux guy? What happened here? This talks about what I already talked about, but also some better hardware enablement stuff where now they're going to use the video encoder part of the GPU if you're on NVIDIA and Intel GPUs, so whilst you're gaming, Discord will put less of a load on your system. Along with doing some improvements to game capture where it will now do Vulkan game capture, which is a relatively recent thing, or it'll take the frame buffer directly from GameScope, so now it should also put less load on your system if you like screen sharing your games on Discord. And this was not the only change as of the past couple of years, because that's the pace that things move on Discord, where things have been a slightly bit less terrible on Linux. For a very long time, screen sharing in Discord, obviously in the browser it worked, with the client, it didn't. At least on Wayland. On X11, because that's where things were originally developed for, it worked totally fine. But when we moved from X11 to Wayland, the way we do screen capture is different. Now we don't just have a API you can call. Now you have to go through the Portal API and have all that stuff integrated and have this new interface integrates with the Portal. And a lot of applications have done this, right? OBS, it's had support for that for like 6 years now. It does totally fine. Most other applications that you probably want to be using do support it. But Discord for a long time didn't do so. And this resulted in some kind of jank, hacky workarounds that you might have even used in the past, like Wayland Video Bridge. This was from David Edmondson, and this was primarily for use within KDE. If you don't remember what it did, it was basically this little daemon that ran in the background, and it would basically support the capture portal, and then pretended to be a window that Discord was looking for. Anytime that Discord requests to capture that window, the daemon would then open up the portal prompt and let you select the thing you actually wanted to capture. It mostly worked fine. It was a little jank. Sometimes it broke, but it did a fine job, and it did a much better job than nothing working whatsoever. Honestly, the main problem it had is because it was made with KDE in mind, whilst it could work in other environments, it was a little bit jank in other environments, and sometimes it would crash, sometimes it just wouldn't open, and it was kind of a bit iffy. It was a hack of a solution anyway. It was very much just there to have something working to make Discord do its thing at the time if you didn't want to have it in the browser. But during that time, we also started seeing a lot of these third-party Discord clients coming along, which were supporting the portal, and a lot of people started migrating over to those and just didn't really think about the problem for a while. Then back in late 2024, we had this. Looks like Discord finally fixed Linux screen and audio sharing with Wayland. This was present in the Canary build for a little bit, and then made its way over to the stable build, and if you started using Linux in the past year, you're probably on Wayland. You may not have even realized that this was a problem we had for a really, really long time. At this point, Discord pretty much just works with the screen sharing on Wayland. I've not really thought about it in quite a long time, and I'm glad that that's another issue that just doesn't exist. At this point, though, I think there are two major issues that still do exist with the Linux build. Obviously, there are just general Discord issues, but those apply to Android and Windows and macOS, but specific things on Linux. First thing is having Discord run natively on Wayland. If you launch it using this command here, Discord --enable -features equals use ozone platform --ozone -platform equals Wayland, it will run native Wayland. And that mostly is fine. except you have to launch it with a bunch of launch options, right? So this is something they're obviously working on in the background. This is probably going to be, I would be very surprised if it is not enabled by default in the coming months, right? If you already got the feature enabled in Electron, you can actively choose, maybe it's just they updated to a version of Electron and then didn't choose to disable the Wayland option there. They have no interest in actually supporting Wayland. Entirely possible, but I'm going to hope that they were testing it, and for whatever reason, they didn't feel like it was stable enough yet or wasn't ready yet, and they've just left it there behind an option. So that is likely being done by all things we can see here. However, that leads to the second problem. A problem which all the tech is there to fix it. Everything is ready for Discord to fix it. But like is very common with Discord, again, a guy works on it, just one dude, maybe two, and even though everything is there to make it work, it's still a matter of actually putting in the work to make it work. That is Discord global shortcuts. So in Discord, you can go and configure keybinds. If we go to this screen here, you can set a keybind. I was testing something with toggle mute. This is not a great binding for it, but it is a binding nonetheless. This binding will work if you are focused on the window. A little bit like this. Works totally fine, but if I'm focused on the other window over here, it doesn't do it. We have local shortcuts, local keybinds. We can do them when we are focused on the window, but not anywhere else. That's really annoying. And this is kind of the main thing you want, right? You want push to talk, you want toggle mute, things like that. There are ways to get around that. You can mute your global microphone and things like that. It's just not a perfect solution. Having it being integrated into Discord and working like it should would make things better. But here's the thing. Chromium supports global shortcuts. If you use something which supports global shortcuts, you'll notice the option is there to configure them. Various plugins make use of global shortcuts, things like that. And Electron, on the later versions, do have support for the portal. This is something which absolutely does exist, and if Discord wants to do it, when they update to a new Electron version, they can absolutely do so. So my hope is this is only a couple of months away. Now you will see posts like this one which do exist. I heard Discord fixed screen sharing on Wayland, but did you know they fixed key binding as well? This got a bunch of upvotes. People were very excited about it. I don't know why I got a bunch of upvotes, because the author actually just gaslit themselves into thinking the problem was fixed. You very clearly saw that it doesn't work here. I'm going to swap over to KDE and show you what happens there. This time, if I'm focused on another window, something different happens. It appears to be working. Not just appears, but it is. Why is that? Well, Discord is currently running under Wayland. If I go into the settings and I go to Legacy X11 App Support, I have this feature enabled. Always allow X11 applications to listen to your keystrokes. So this is running through Wayland. If I'm focused even on a Wayland window, this application is still able to hear my keybinds in the background, and basically it's just using the X11 path for doing keybinds, completely circumventing Wayland. What's weird though, is this behaves also with the Wayland mode enabled. Here we are running it under native Wayland. You notice the headers are missing. This is just how they are handling the rendering when it's running native Wayland. Probably part of the reason why it's still not enabled by default, because it does kind of break a bit of the rendering because it does force CSD on things like KDE. I'm not entirely sure why, but if we are focused on this window, this is a native Wayland window. If I run Excise, this is my favorite test. If we run Excise, if we're on an X11 window, it will go and follow the cursor. On a native Wayland window, it won't, and Discord is native Wayland. However, the binding's working. So what appears to be happening, and this feels intentional, even running the native Wayland version, it's still using the X11 code path for keybinds? This has to be an intentional choice. I don't see how Electron just accidentally does that. So if you want Discord to have global shortcuts on Wayland, KDE works. I believe you can get it to work with Hyperland with the way they handle passing in keybinds to applications. There's a few other things where it does work. I've not been able to work out if there's a way to do it with Wayland Satellite, which is what is used by Niri. If there is, please do let me know, but I don't think there is. So Niri, I do have to have a workaround for. Granted, I do have a, Stream Deck here and I have a mic mute button, so I can just, do that. It's not a perfect solution, but it is a solution nonetheless. It seems like both these problems are on their way to be fixed, just naturally by updating Electron versions. It seems like it should be dealt with hopefully soon. Now, Electron, Discord's still going to be Discord. It's still going to be Discord. But at the very least, it should be no worse than the Windows version of the application sometime relatively soon, which is good. I know, it's really not a high bar. I fully understand that this shouldn't be something I am celebrating and praising Discord for, but for how long it's been broken, I kind of have to, don't I? The video's almost over. I just realized that I spelt this wrong. I missed a C. It's one of those days. It is one of those days. So, let me know. Do you use Discord? Do you use a third-party client? Do you even realize it was getting better? Do you even care? Do you just use it in the browser? I'd love to know. So, if you liked the video, go like the video. Go subscribe as well. And if you really liked the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon subscribes daily bearer pay linked in the description down below. That's going to be it for me, and wow, it's actually not terrible.